Hi, folks. Let's get started in the 300 block of Center Street. We're here, and this is now 217 Center, but this is Robinson's Jewelry. But this building used to be a 5 and 10 store. So this was a mecca for toys for us kids. This is where we would come and pick up a toy, and we just, this was it. I remember when they remodeled the front of it, I remember my mother and some of the other ladies talking about how they modernized the building on Center Street, and it was kind of a big thing. But anyway, this is what this was. This was a 5 and 10 store. And then today, now it's a jewelry store. I don't really remember what this particular store was. Maybe some of you old timers do, and if you do, drop me a thing on Facebook and let me know. I'd just like to know so I could, make a note of it. Now, the 3-star building, this is a unique building. This used to be O'Quinn's Barbershop when I was a kid growing up. And when you walked in, the chairs were over here on the right. And Bobby O'Quinn, who owned it, his chair was up here, the first one. And Mr. Roberts, his chair was the last one. And over on the right, against that wall, was a shoe shine area. And this is where people would come and get their shoes shined and get a haircut. But what really made this place unique was there was a door in the back, and you could go through that door into a pool hall. And I remember my grandfather, I'm coming with him, Mike Tiliakis, and I remember my dad would come up here, and sometimes in the evening time, it was just kind of a place to gather. And people would come in. Of course, the barbershop and the shoe shine seat was closed, but they would go back and they would play pool. And I don't know who ran the pool room, but that's where we would go. So this building here really has some good memories for me as a child, and I'm sure a lot of you old timers remember it too. Let's move on down. Now, today, this vacant lot that you're looking at was not always a vacant lot. There was actually a liquor store here and a cafe. Now, the liquor store was owned by a gentleman named Pete Pappas. And Pete was a kind of a rotunda type, jolly old fellow, laughing a lot, having a good time. Well, why not? He owned a liquor store. And he was a Greek fella, and I remember my dad and my granddaddy, and they all would get together and come down here and they would talk Greek. Then if we move on a little further, the liquor store, then we had the Palmetto Cafe. The Palmetto Cafe was a very small cafe, probably didn't sit more than about, maybe 30 people. It had a counter and it had a few little tables and chairs. It was owned by Chris and George Vertus, two more Greeks. We had quite a big Greek community and Italian community back then. And the Palmetto Cafe was a place where you could go and, you get a sandwich, you get a bowl of soup, and grab a quick lunch. And George Vertus was godfather of my brother Mike. And great people. They actually were from Valparaiso, Indiana, and they moved here. I don't know why they moved here, but they did. And when they closed up the restaurant, the cafe, my dad built a garage in our backyard, and we lived up on 5th Street, just to house the equipment that came out of this cafe. I never did quite understand why they closed up or why they had to have a place to house all the stuff. But anyway, just a little bit of history as we go on. Let's move on down. you know, there's so much history as we go down Center Street. We keep looking, and we keep saying, you know, this used to be here or that used to be here. But if you look right up here, this was for those of us who dreaded going to the dentist. This is where Dr. Rotifer's office was. And you would go and sit in that chair, and of course you would get all your drillings and fillings and extractions, and we just dreaded it. Any way to get out of it, we would try to get out of it. And of course our moms wouldn't let us get out of it. They would drag us here screaming and kicking and dragging us up the stairs and making us go. Also, that was the office of Dr. Bailey Dickens' office was up there, and Dr. Cecil Bruton. So this was sort of our medical headquarters, you might say, on Center Street was right here. Now down below, this building right here, in my day, this was Steger's drugstore. So you would go upstairs to the doctor, come downstairs and get your prescription filled. But the good news was, when you would go in there, they also had a counter, and you could get the best hamburgers, cheeseburgers, hot dogs in the world right here at Steger's drugstore. But everybody knew everybody. You couldn't do anything wrong as a kid growing up because everybody knew your parents. And if they saw you doing something wrong, you were just liable to get a whipping here. And then when you got home, your mom knew about it. You got another whipping when you got home. So growing up, we kind of walked a fairly tight line, so to speak. But this was Steger's, and the doctor's offices were upstairs. Now, this 205 Center Street, this was the spot. This was Genes. And the sign that hung above the store was Genes, the biggest, littlest store in the world. And there's going to be a photograph in this segment of Genes, and Gene Barnhart ran it, and he owned it along with his wife, Myra. And when you walked in, anything you wanted was in this store. And literally, I don't care what it was, bicycles, televisions, BB guns, you name it, he had it. But in the back, he had a great fountain. And again, when you wanted to get a Coca-Cola, you just didn't go to a vending machine. They actually made the Coca-Cola. And I remember when the fountain drinks changed from the carbonated water and syrup over to just flat, you know, Coca-Cola, I guess, or Pepsi would put it in. And I remember people complaining, you know, oh, it doesn't taste right. That's not the way a Coca-Cola should taste, and that sort of thing. But this was Genes, the biggest, littlest store in the world, and it was absolutely the truth. It was. This building has been a lot of things. It was offices, and I remember at one time it was a grocery store. And but then there was a guy named John Labors, and John had a meat market here. And John was also a treasure hunter. He treasure hunted with some old treasure hunters that I ran with and hunted with. And the story has it that John actually found something on the south end of the island, and within a week he was gone. May be true, I don't know. I do know that he abruptly closed his business and he abruptly left. Where he went, I don't know. So if anybody knew John Labors or his family and knows what happened to John, be sure to let me know. I'd love to know. I mean, I know a lot of the old history, but I don't know it all. But I'm, you know, my goal is to share what I know with you. Hope you enjoyed it. This was the 200 block of Center Street. Our next segments will be going on down and then across the street. And you'll be getting hopefully 2 of these a week from now on. So anyway, Until we do the next segment, hope you've enjoyed it. Hope it sparked your memories. For the newcomers, I hope you've learned a little bit more. And until the next segment, take care and God bless.